Hi, within this section, we're going to focus on an attack called cross-site scripting. Maybe you have heard this before with the acronym of XSS. So we're going to see some various options of cross-site scripting, and this attack will let us to run some JavaScript codes on the victim browser once again. But we're not going to use any tool in order to do that. We're going to run these commands via the victim website. So anyone visiting this website with a cross-site scripting vulnerability will be running these codes that we are trying to inject. So now if you're ready, let's get started.
Hi, within this lecture, we're going to see a new vulnerability called XSS, and it stands for cross-site scripting. Up until now, we have been working with this DVWA and Metasploitable machine, and we're going to work with DVWA once again in this section, but this is a separate subject, and this is actually a little bit deeper and a little bit different than previous ones, so it deserves its own section. So I'm going to show you the XSS attacks on this DVWA once more. If you have missed the previous sections, I suggest you go back and come here, because we covered command execution, upload vulnerabilities, file inclusion vulnerabilities, and some other methods to hack into the web server. And you should know these attacks in order to understand website pen testing comprehensively, because now we're stepping into a completely different set of attacks. And as you can see, now I'm running Metasploitable machine, and at the same time I'm running my Kali Linux on the same NAT network. So we did this within the previous section as well, but if you have missed, I'm just showing you the usual setup. And again, if you missed, please go back and watch the previous sections. So maybe you remember, if you type the Metasploitable IP, you can click this DVWA here to get into this screen. And we're going to work with this XSS reflected and XSS stored later on, but right now I'm going to tell you what cross-site scripting really means. So up until now, we have worked with vulnerabilities that are run on the server side. What do I mean? We hacked into the server by running some command execution vulnerabilities, by some upload exploits, or some file inclusion vulnerabilities as well. But right now, we're not going to hack into the web server. We're just going to look for a way to inject some JavaScript code in the web server, and these JavaScript codes won't be run on the server side, but rather they will be run on the client side. And by client side, I mean the victim's browser. Okay? Maybe you remember from the beef section, if you inject a JavaScript code in a website, it will get run on victim's browser, so that we would have the chance, we will have the opportunity to run some JavaScript codes on victims. And we're going to search for vulnerabilities in order to inject a JavaScript codes to these vulnerable websites. So let's stop here, and within the next lecture we're going to see how to do that. Hi, within this lecture we're going to see the first option of cross-site scripting attacks, which is XSS reflected. And then later on we'll move on to the stored as well, don't worry. So what does reflected cross-site scripting mean? It means that we get to manipulate an URL, and we're going to send this URL to our victim, and when a victim clicks on this URL, a JavaScript code will be run on their browser. So it depends on the URL. And in order to do that, in order to find this vulnerability, we're going to test the URL in our own machine in this very website. So consider this. Suppose this is a regular website, okay? And we see a form in here. And with this form, user can interact with this website. So it says that, what's your name? And when I give my name, it will say something like hello. As you can see, it says hello James, but in here it takes in a parameter. When you see something like this with question mark and a variable name, it means that you get to try stuff. We did that in file inclusion as well. So right now I'm going to try to run some JavaScript code in here, okay? Rather than submitting a single name, I'm just going to submit a script. And maybe you remember that we use this syntax in order to run some scripts. So start with script, angular parentheses, and close these angular parentheses with a slash, and we get to write our script between these two codes. I'm just going to create a simple alert in here like we did before, and I will just say I hack you, but by now you know that we can use this technique in order to run some malicious JavaScript code as well, and we're going to do that in the last lecture of this section. But for the time being, I just want to make sure that this has this vulnerability, this has the reflected cross-site scripting vulnerability in this page. So what I'm going to do is to create a simple alert, and I know you already learned how to do that in the previous lectures, right? So what do? We write alert, and in parentheses we open and close quotation marks, and in between we write our own message. So I'm going to just say I hack you, and I will hit submit. As you can see, we got an alert box, we got a message in here. And if this was a regular website, I can just send this link to any user, whether they are on the same network or not, it doesn't matter. They will click on this link and this will be run on their computer. So this is a reflected cross-site scripting attack. So if this was configured properly, then this wouldn't be displayed to us. So the user wouldn't be able to run this JavaScript code on their browser. So right now I'm going to stop here, and within the next lecture we are going to move on to the stored cross-site scripting attack. Then we're going to see how to use a malicious JavaScript code as well. Hi, within this lecture we're going to see the second option of cross-site scripting attacks, which is XSS store. So in here, rather than manipulating a URL, we're going to store our JavaScript code in that website, so whichever user, whenever they go into this page, they will be running this JavaScript code on their browser. So we're going to store that JavaScript code in this page. And in order to test that, we're going to write our JavaScript code in this message box. As you can see, this is a regular message board, and if you see something like this, you can try to write your message in JavaScript code as well. So it asks us to write our name and our message. So rather than giving a simple message, I'm going to supply some JavaScript code and see if it is stored in here. First, I'm going to test to see if this is working or not. So I'm going to say James and message, and I will sign the guest book. And as you can see, it displays the message. So whenever a user comes in here, they will see these messages, okay? And right now, I'm not going to give a single or regular message in here, but rather I'm just going to give a script. I'm just going to write a JavaScript code. So it won't even display this message, but it will store the JavaScript code in the page, and so whenever somebody comes to this page, they will be running this code on their browser. So I'm just going to write the same code one more time. I'm going to say script in angular parentheses, and I'm going to close this script with /script, and I'm going to write alert in between. And remember, we have to open quotation marks, and between the quotation marks we can just write our message. And I'm going to sign this book, and as you can see, I got the message here. So an alert box is displayed to me. Right now, if I go back and come to this XSS stored page one more time, it will be displayed again. So I'm browsing in this website, so I don't know what's going on. I'm just trying to explore this website, and if I click in here, as you can see, I see the message. So it doesn't have to be me. Any user has access to this web page can come here and see this message right now. So you know the difference between reflected and stored, and we're going to stop here, and within the next lecture we're going to use a real malicious JavaScript code in order to hack into the users that are on this website. Hi, within this lecture we're going to see how to use a beef hooking JavaScript code in our cross-site scripting attacks, so that the all users landing on our web page is hooked to our beef control panel, so that we can run any command that we want on their browser. In fact, cross-site scripting attacks provide us a perfect timing to use beef, because beef requires a JavaScript code to be run on the browser on the client side, and XSS provides us this opportunity. Now let's run beef. So you can click on here and start beef, you know that already, and in here we get an exemplary URL, and if we copy this URL and make a user click on this, it means that they are hooked on our beef. And I will use our XSS vulnerability right now in order to make sure everyone landing on a page that has this XSS vulnerability will be hooked. So let me show you how to do that. So you know this already, username is beef and password is beef as well. So I don't have any hooked browsers right here right now. What I'm gonna do, I'm going to take my exemplary script in here or here and make this into my XSS attack. So let me copy this and let me go back to my DVWA here. So we had our sign book here. Let me paste it in here, and as you can see, we came across a problem. So here we cannot paste all the code. So it means that there is a limit on how many characters we can write in that box. So it's like a Twitter, you cannot write more than some kind of a limit, okay? Let me show you how you can overcome this problem actually. So you have to right click and say inspect element. So you can actually access the HTML version of this website. So we have to find this message box in the source code of this website. So here, as you can see, as we hover over this code in here in below, it just focuses on the each character, each box, each element. So you can easily find the message because it will be highlighted when you come the right place like this. Okay, so now you see that you're hovering over this message box in here, and you have to go to details of this. As you can see, we have this kind of limitation in here. So max length, you have to increase this amount. Like you can increase it to 250, I don't know, just hit enter, and then you can close this, and then you can actually complete this script. So now we are done here, and you have to adjust it to your local IP, of course, and then we are ready to carry out the attack. So as you remember, you have to give a name like James, it doesn't matter, and you just sign the guest book. We see I hack you message from our previous attacks. So it's working. So let me go back and let me just refresh this beef in here, and as we can see, we now see our own machine hooked to the beef. So this is working, and this is injecting the hook beef script to every possible computer that has landed on that page. And this is the exciting part. Let's try this on different computers. So let's open our virtual machine, Windows virtual machine. So this is entirely another computer, as you know, and let's go to the XSS stored page, and we see the I hack you box in here because it's already in the script from our previous attacks, but now we see this empty message from James, and this must hook us to the beef in our Kali machine. And as you can see, if you go here, you see a Windows machine hooked here. In order to test this, let's go to the commands and let's do a simple one. Let's search for alert box here, not petty thefts. Let me delete this and write alert here. And if you find this alert dialog, you can just try this. And if we go back to our Windows machine, now we see beef alert dialog. So now we actually have control over this Windows machine, and we can run whatever we want from this beef dashboard over here. So now let's stop here, and within the next lecture we're gonna cover how to protect ourselves from this kind of attacks. Hi, within this lecture we're going to discuss how to make sure that we are safe against these cross-site scripting attacks. So actually we have discussed this before on the beef sections. Since these attacks will run some JavaScript codes on our browser, we have to stay away from these untrusted unknown websites. But you also have seen if a hacker finds a vulnerability in another website rather than their own web server or rather than their own fake game websites, they can also inject some JavaScript codes as well. So suppose that you have to open a website and you're suspicious whether to open it or not because it may contain some malicious codes. And in this case, maybe you won't hesitate to turn off JavaScript. In order to do that, I'm going to show you the Chrome version, but you can find this JavaScript enabling or disabling tool in other browsers as well. So you have to go to settings, okay, and you can try to search for JavaScript, but I'm going to show you the longer way. I'm going inside the privacy and security, and in here you should look for something called content settings. So let me scroll up a little bit, and as you can see, I have seen the content settings, and in here we have JavaScript allowed. As you can see, if I click on it, I can disallow JavaScript from being run on my browser. And it's not recommended to do that because it may distort the view, it may distort the functionalities of real websites as well. So it may distort usage of trusted websites, not harmful websites as well. However, you can use this block and allow sections in order to add some exceptions also. So if you're suspicious about a website, you can add that certain website to block section, so JavaScript will be only blocked on that particular website. So maybe you may want to use this feature. And this is not only valid for Chrome, you can search how to do that in other browsers as well if you're using some kind of Safari or Opera or even Explorer. So the best way to avoid this attack, as I said before, to stay away from the malicious websites, unknown websites. But there will be times that you will have to go into that website. Maybe you're searching for something, maybe you're curious, I don't know. So it is safe than sorry. Maybe you can add this to block list and then try to find your way into that website. So I believe now you have learned how to search for XSS vulnerabilities and how to stay safe from cross-site scripting attacks as well. So we're going to stop here, and within the next section we're going to focus on learning SQL injections and SQL knowledge.
Now you know how to look for cross-site scripting vulnerabilities and what are the differences between stored and reflected XSS. And you know how to protect yourself against these attacks. Now if you're ready, let's move on to the next section.